Wrestling fans from around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
It took him a second.
Always does.
Before we get to this great full-length episode of Memories and Legends, check out some of our great friends you can help support the cause to keep more Memories and Legends coming your way. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Johnny, the fans just haven't asked for it, they have demanded it.
This August, we're headed back to Tampa for Wrestle House 2.
WrestleMania weekend, we brought you Sinister Minister James Mitchell, TJP, Demolition Smash, Al Snow, Dutch Mantel Zeb Coulter, JTG of Primetime, and WWE Hall of Famer Gerald Briscoe for in-depth interviews and live interactive cyber autograph signings.
And if you want our Wednesday Night Wrestling Insider Special edition episodes to continue, we need your help to bring these superstars' careers and lives to life.
Bringing you free content 7 days each week is an expensive proposition. Between appearance fees, air travel, renting the house, the equipment, and everything that goes in to a week of shooting, we can't do it without you.
As we prepare to return to producing live in-ring events, help us bring you the superstars and legends of yesterday and tomorrow by visiting Indiegogo now and check out some of the great rewards.
Wrestling fans, it's going to be a wild week in Tampa the first week in August. Get ready for Wrestle House 2.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans from around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm Tony, Mr. USA Atlas.
Can you believe, Tony, we're approaching Thanksgiving already?
Wow, I'm ready to eat.
I'm hungry.
I want some turkey dressing, cranberry sauce, and I want some green beans and lasagna to go on my Thanksgiving plate. And I don't like pumpkin pie, I like sweet potato pie.
All right, well, I'm sure you wouldn't say no to a free meal in any
No,
case.
I would not. I eat that pumpkin pie.
Of course not.
Put a little whipped cream on that bad boy. Yeah, I tear that all to pieces. But I tell you what is real good. You got to try this one day. You take pig's feet, and put it in vanilla ice cream.
I think I'm going to skip that one, Tony. I'll take your word for it, though.
Pig's feet.
You're an honest guy.
Yeah, pig feet and vanilla ice cream.
All right, as we speak, Tony, it is a monster weekend for WWE.
Yes, it is.
The Staples Center in Los Angeles, they have NXT TakeOver LA, Survivor Series, then Raw and SmackDown. 4 straight nights at the Staples Center. That's remarkable for any genre to go to the same building 4 nights in a row and do that big business.
Well, yes, but you see, most of the time what people don't realize, many of the time wrestling fans, when they have one event, a big event like a lot of wrestling fans is not able to get in. I mean, the building only holds so many people.
Right.
So if you got a building that holds 20,000 people and you got 60,000 people on the outside, how you going to accommodate the 40,000 people that's not be able to get to see that show.
Right.
So by Vince being the person that he is, he wanted to make sure that every wrestling fan have opportunity to see it. So he booked the building for longer days. It's kind of like a Broadway movie, you know, Broadway show like Cat. You know, the first month the building sold out. You may have to. It stayed there 6 months to a year, sometimes years.
Right. Yeah.
In order for everybody in New York City
see it.
surrounding area to see it, because if they have it there for just 1 month, there's a lot of people who will never see that program.
Right.
So you got a large amount of people, and what a lot of people here in America don't realize about WWE. Most of their fans that come to these pay-per-views,
Like WrestleMania. Yeah.
like WrestleMania, are not even. They don't even live in the country.
Nope.
I mean, they got fans coming from Germany, Spain, France. They come from all over the world to see WrestleMania.
I'm going to put over my buddy from England that I met at WrestleMania this year, Jamie Ryder, and he had a friend that had a few too many adult beverages at WrestleMania and almost got tossed. We did an interview following WrestleMania. We had a great conversation, and I hope you're going to come out for WrestleMania in New York this year. We had a great time sitting with him. You never know who you're going to sit next to in an event. I still People can say, you've been involved in wrestling for 25 years. How can you still go and watch those shows? That's what the marks do. Well, I tell you this, Tony, I learn something every time I go.
Yeah.
Whether it's something in the ring,
That's
whether
right.
it's something good, whether
Yeah.
it's something I don't like,
Yeah.
whether it's the way the merchandise is displayed,
Yeah.
whether it's the way their light rig is set up, whether it's the way their cameras are set up. When I go to a WWE event, you know, I enjoy the ambiance of the wrestling, but I like to see what they do well and the things that I think maybe they should do a little different.
And now you done, I like to say, good friend to my good friend from Germany, Sabrina. She comes to every WrestleMania, and I wrestled in Germany a couple of times, but she came out to see us. But all the wrestlers, they all know Sabrina. She's a big blonde-headed girl. She's probably about 6 feet tall, but her and her friends come from Germany every WrestleMania.
Well, I think we have to extend the invitation. Sabrina, if you're ever in the Boston area when we're taping
Come to
Memories and
Boston
Legends,
Wrestling.
come on down. We'll have some fun in the studio. We try and make admission free for everybody. If you want to help the cause with an autographed picture or DVD, you know, these productions, they're not cheap, Tony. We've said it before and we'll say it again.
No.
All right. Full-length episode, Tony. We had a great episode last spring when we talked about your career from 1984 through the middle of 1986. You got a little feisty in that one.
Yeah.
As we went off the air, you kind of rolled, or you didn't walk off the set, you rolled off the set in your chair and you were angry.
Yeah, my hip was hurting during that.
Well, you had a cane too. We
I
were
had a
like
cane.
we were like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader with
Yes.
dueling canes. But anyway, I want to talk about, and I think this is going to make a magnificent Thanksgiving week because we haven't, as of the time we record this, we haven't taped our second November episode yet. We're going to get there as we do our tapings, usually in advance, to try and give us time to make a nice edited product. But I want to talk about the time before we get to the homelessness. I want to talk about from when you left Vince in 1986 to that difficult time in your life when you wound up in Maine.
Well, see, what ended up happening, they took the belt off of Rocky Johnson and I.
Now, that's 1984.
Yeah, but they took the belt off
Right.
of us, me and Rocky. Rocky went up to Vince McMahon Jr. And he said, Vince, you are not going to make me into a jobber like you did S.D. Jones. So Rocky Johnson left. I stayed thinking, listening to what, my problem was I was gullible. Vince said, stay here. I'm going to take care of you. And I just left Vern to Gagne, and Vern Gagne had put the title on me and Jumping Jim Bronzell. So I left there, Vern, I was champion with Jumping Jim Bronzell. They were, before his death, they was working a program with me and Bruiser Brody. So I was involved in two programs.
You and Brody in the AWA?
Me and
Really?
Brody in AWA. I got a picture of me and Brody wrestling in AWA. You look
Wow.
for some of the magazines, you see the program they was building.
That was a couple of years before I started watching. I didn't know that.
And you're right. So they had me in a program with Bruiser Brody in AWA. Plus, me and Jumping Jim Bronzell, we beat Animal and Hawk for the AWA tag team
They were
title.
white hot at that point.
And they were super, super hot. So Vern had a lot of plans for me, and Vince convinced me to come back.
Tricked you almost.
Yeah. And he convinced me to come back to the WWF at that time.
Yep.
And he said, we're going to take care of you, Tony. We're going to take care of you, Tony. But he said, every time we turn around, he said, you got to do me a favor, do me a favor, do me a favor. The straw that broke the camera back for me and Vince was I was going to wrestle Hercules Hernandez on TV. Now, he had me to do jobs, but not on TV.
Not a televised
This is the
job,
first
okay.
time he wanted me to lay down on TV, and Slick was his manager.
Right.
And the finish was I picked him up over my head, and Slick would reach through the ring with his cane and trip me, and Hercules fell back on top of me. Then he said, we're going to have a rematch, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So finally, I went for it. And I even talked to Pat Powers. I said, Pat, why is he doing me this way? I said, I left Vern to come this guy, and I said, all he's doing is crapping on me. You know, I said, I hadn't done nothing wrong, hadn't missed no shows. I was perfect. I was early
During
to the
that
shows.
run.
I was the first one there and the last one to leave every show. Did everything that man asked me to do. And all he did was crap on me, crap on me, crap on me. Well, you know, what happened to you is your fault. Yeah, I realized that, Vince, but how long you going to punish
Hold
me
it
for?
over your head.
So finally, I went to Philly one day, and Gorilla Monsoon came up and told me, said, I hate to tell this kid, but you fired. I said, for what? He said, well, Vince said he's done with you. I said, for what? There was no explanation, no nothing. I'm just fired. So I went to stay at a hotel on 49th and 8th Street, and I was paying like $500-600 a week to stay there. S.D. Jones' wife, Kate, heard about it. She said, "You go get Tony. He could stay here."
Oh, that was nice.
So I stayed at
People
S.D.
that
house.
cared about you.
Yeah, S.D. wife had me to stay at her house, and then S.D. mentioned it to one of the wrestlers. Well, Vince told S.D. Jones, "You either kick Tony Atlas out your house or I'm gonna fire you."
Wow.
And S.D. said, "No, I'm not gonna do that. That's my friend, because that's my friend." So S.D. came to tell me what Vince said, and I said, "S.D., I leave." I said, "I don't want you losing your job because of me." You know, I said, "I already cost you in the past where I screwed up with the tag team thing." So I left and stayed at another friend's house until I was able to to get booked somewhere. So finally, George Scott got me booked down in World Class, but I was able to save money by staying at SD house until I was able to go. Because the hotel by itself would cost me almost $600-700 a week just for the hotel.
Oh, you were living there.
And that wasn't including eating out. I'd eat out every day. I was living at the hotel, you know. And even though they gave us a good deal, we was only paying like $80 a night, but still,
it adds up if you're not booked.
Yeah, that's add up with no income coming in.
All right, Tony. August of 19...
That's why I got so angry about that, because it brought back all that.
Some bad memories.
He's going to tell this. He fired SD for letting me. He started using SD because SD tried to help me, and I wasn't even working for Vince.
What is amazing is August of 1986, to me, it was one of the great times in wrestling. I had just become a fan. The first live event I ever went to at the Boston Garden back when it was monthly, you were actually featured on it. I think you wrestled Ted R. City on that back in August of 1986. Funny enough, on that same show, Sheiky Baby was also on that show live. And little did I know, back as a 6-year-old me in 1986, that 19 years later, me and this guy would be hit by a drunk driver and become crippled together.
America. How poor.
But you were getting ready to leave, Tony. Late August 1986, you do a job to Adrian Adonis at MSG. MSG, they usually kept you strong. And you just kind of, no-sold it and just kind of got up and left. What was going on in it? Do you remember that night at MSG?
Yep.
Tell me about the night at MSG.
Well, the most embarrassing thing for any wrestler in my day was to get pinned by a drunken, fat, out of shape guy in a dress. Vince used Adrian to embarrass wrestlers. Back in them days, for the guy in the dress to beat one of the strongest men in the world, I'm bench pressing 600 pounds, I'm laying down in the ring for a guy in a dress that was out of shape. You see what I'm saying?
I hear you.
And that's what made Vince let me go. Because Vince told me that night at the Madison Square Garden, he said, "I can't use you on bottom because you're too good, and I can't use you on top." And he walked away.
That happened the night of that Adonis
Well,
match?
if you listen to that crowd, the whole crowd was hollering bullshit, bullshit. No, they didn't buy it.
Well, I could see your point of view as you being Tony Atlas.
I was the wrong person to put in that match.
Right, but you have to be fair. They were grooming Adonis for the semi-main event at WrestleMania 3. It's not like he was an undercard guy. I don't disagree with you on that.
Because the fan never bought it. It was too unbelievable. It was not believable to the fan.
They were using you, to be fair, almost as mop-up duty for the heels they were trying to push, and the fans, they didn't take to it.
They didn't take to it. It didn't work. And that's why Vince let me go and I went to World Class.
And you wound up missing what turned into a huge phenomenon, what was called the big event in Toronto. It took place a few days after the MSG show. I think you were scheduled to wrestle Hercules there. It was a house show that sold out a stadium with 65,000 some odd fans because Hogan and Orndorff was so hot.
Yep.
You missed it.
Yep.
And you didn't really care.
No, I was not booked there.
You were booked.
No.
Yeah, you were advertised.
I know.
So you no-showed?
No.
You were fired?
Yes.
All right. That's the truth.
That's the truth.
You wish you had a chance to go to
yes.
I'm sure there was a nice payday at the big event.
I was at WrestleMania 1.
Right.
And didn't wrestle.
We discussed that in our 80s episode.
Right. Vince would do that.
All right, so...
he didn't want to let you know you was fired. He would send one of his agents to you after he get in the building and everything, and at the last minute, he would have somebody come and tell you you're not. I went with when Monsoon fired me. You know where I was at when he fired me? Sitting in the dressing room in the Spectrum.
Really?
Yeah. Madison Square Garden, WrestleMania 1. I was getting in the cab to go to the Gardens. And Skolin was sitting outside waiting for me to come out.
Wow.
They sent Skolin to the hotel. We were the Ramada Inn on 49th and 8th Street. Son Hogan from the Gardens over there with $2,000 in cash to give to me, not to show up.
Not to show up.
Right.
All right, Tony.
I was getting ready to go to the town, and then they tell me, oh, you're not booked tonight. You got the night off. That's what they would tell you. You got the night off.
We covered 84 to the first half of 86 in that great episode that's available now on BostonWrestling.com. Who has no balls?
Vince ain't got no balls.
He's got no balls, huh?
No balls.
Tell us how you really feel.
He got no balls.
So let's just say...
Stephanie got bigger balls than he got. At least she tell you what she think to your face. She won't tell you nothing behind your back. I got a lot of respect for Stephanie McMahon. I got a lot of respect for Triple H. And I got a lot of respect for Shane McMahon. Vince, I don't have that much respect for. And that's honest God truth. Because he got no balls.
Man gave you a lot of opportunity.
Tell me, talk to me.
If he was better communicating with you direct, you'd have more respect for him.
Yes, but he would tell you, don't worry, Tony, everything is okay. You good with us. And 5 minutes later, he's saying something else. He tell you one thing to your face and something else behind your back.
All right, let's pretend this, Tony. We like to go, when you're here sometimes, up to the Kowloon restaurant. Let's say we bumped into Vince McMahon in a non-WWE, if it were a non-WWE event, you're just two guys that ran into each other. What would you say to Vince?
I say hi.
That's it.
I wouldn't have I got no animosity. I like Vince. We all got faults. One of
you like the man.
I love him to death. I really, really like Vince a lot. To me, you know, he's a great guy. I like him. It's just he got one fault. I didn't say everything about that man was bad. It's just one thing. We all got something about us that people just don't like. There's certain things about me that my wife don't even like. Don't mean she don't love me. Don't mean that she want to divorce me. It's just this certain particular thing about me that she don't like. One of the things that people in the wrestling world in the olden days didn't like about Tony Atlas, when I was young, I had the worst temper in the world. I had a very, very short fuse. And S.D. Jones used to always say, when Tony is sober, when he's not messing with drugs or nothing, Tony is the nicest guy you want to meet in your life, sober. But as soon as Tony gets something, you give him that, as S.D. would say, as soon as you give him that shit, it changed him. He become a different person.
So in 86, were you drinking and abusing drugs?
No, I was clean then.
You were done? Oh, you're talking about the previous run in the 83, 84.
Yeah, then, yes. Yeah, back in the early 80s. When me and Rocky got the belt, I was clean during the belt. I stayed clean.
So in 86, when you left after that Adonis match, there was...
I was clean.
I'm sure you had a beer from time to time.
A beer, yeah, I had a beer, but
no drugs.
No drugs at all.
Fair enough.
There was absolutely no drug. My worst drug days happened after my career. My worst days a year with drugs was in 1989.
Well, we're gonna get there.
Because I got stoned every freaking day.
We're gonna get there, Tony.
Every day.
We're gonna get. Hold my hand, baby. We'll keep going.
Every day.
So what happened? You're gone in August, September, October, November. There's kind of another gap there in your career. You wound up in Texas in December. What were you doing for those 3 months?
I was cutting SD grass.
Really? Now, how did it feel to go from a superstar on national television? I can't imagine there were too many restaurants and airports that you could go through where people wouldn't say, hey, that's Tony Atlas.
Yep.
And now you're mowing SD Jones' lawn.
Yep. It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was very, very embarrassing.
Did you have to take up work of any kind outside of wrestling?
I did a little bodyguard work. It used to be this. I had a friend, and his name was, they called him, his name was Charlie. He had a little group they called Chucky Angel, and he was part of the Hell Angel. He was a Hell Angel leader, and I took a bodyguard to Tony Awards. I bodyguard for Cheetah Rivera and Liza Minnelli when they did The Rank on Broadway. So I did a bodyguard work in New York, and I worked with this guy named. He's still around. I saw him probably about 2013, he go to these mixed martial art things because that's what he's into. And he look it up, he call himself Chucky Angel. Instead of Charlie Angel,
Chucky.
it was that's what they called him. His name was Chuck. And I can't remember his name right now, but I got his picture at home because me and him was in the same program. We went to M&A, and Scott Epstein, God rest his soul, took me there, and I got to see him. It was in 2013, I believe it was. You know, and he still stock it still. And he used to have a ring they called the phone booth because it was so small you couldn't run. And he's a guy and they just beat the crap out of him. But I did bodyguard work, and that's what I did.
All right, wrestling fans, I think that's a great spot to take a time out. We're going to check out some of our great friends, what they have going on, and we're going to come back, talk about Tony's time in Puerto Rico, world-class championship wrestling, which for a time when I was a little guy, believe it or not, that was my favorite promotion, not WWF. I loved watching World Class on ESPN. We're going to continue to tell Tony's story from when he left WWF until he truly hit rock bottom when he became homeless. Stand by. Wrestling fans, welcome back to Memories and Legends. It's a great holiday week. It's one of the great traditions in professional wrestling nowadays. Survivor Series in Los Angeles. Again, season 2. Unlike the first season of Memories and Legends, we had a great plethora of guests for season 2. David Reese and I decided that we're just going to keep it all Tony Atlas. And we'll see where season 3 goes next spring. But Tony, you talk about great traditions. One of the great traditions in Puerto Rico is the anniversary show they have every year. One of your first stops when you left WWF in 1986 was to go to Puerto Rico. You competed on their anniversary show. Yeah. Was that the first foray for you into Puerto Rico, or had you been there before?
Oh, I've been there to see.
Before WWF? Oh, that's right. He owned Gorilla Monsoon on the piece, right?
My Monsoon was our partners back in the old WWF days that we used to do show that. In fact, Hulk Hogan wrestled there on one of the shows. It was the same week as the bumming of the hotel.
Really?
Yeah, that was when Hulk Hogan was on that show. Where they bummed the Dumont Hotel there, and the people were jumping off for the fire. Yeah, I was there when that happened. I saw people jump from that hotel.
Wow.
To show you how lucky we were, we all checked out the hotel the day before the bombing in Puerto Rico. And I was dating at that time a Puerto Rican girl by the name of Lisa. And I asked Gorilla Monsoon, can I have a couple of days off to spend time in Puerto Rico? He said, yeah. He said everybody gonna be off for a while. He said, yeah. He said, we get you a ticket to fly out 2 days later. So I went to stay at Lisa's grandmother's house. And so we were downtown because the gym was downtown. As I come from the gym, there's people, I saw the smoke and everything, and people up on top of the building, and people were jumping off. But that same show, that week, Hogan wrestled there.
I think it wrestled John Studd, and it turned into a giant rainstorm,
big
if I remember right.
That's right. That was the same week.
Same week, really?
Of that Dumont Hotel. Wow. Yeah, same week.
The experiences you've had. Sometimes you tell me you're a dumb man, you're a foolish man, but the memory you have, and you claim your memory isn't even that good, I'd like to see the stories you'd have to tell if your memory was good. Because you and I could go on for years with these stories.
Well, see, but when a tragedy happened, it sticks to you more than anything else. It's just like I remember what happened to me when I was 6, because I got pushed in the creek by Jerry Hayes and split my skull open. So I never forgot that. When I was 7 years old, this guy came along. He was a child molester. He worked for what they call Big Brothers, and he tried to rape me in the pond. And
this is back in Virginia?
Back in Virginia. I was like 7 years old, but I remember that guy. I remember I'm telling my mom about it, and my mom had to go and confront the guy. And the guy wanted to fight my mom because my mom wouldn't let him get to me because he was trying to get me to change my story. And we was told not to lie to our mother. So my mother asked me, said, what the guy do? I said, he'd take us to the lake, and he would go underneath the water and put our thing in his mouth. And I told my mom, Mom said, I don't want y'all around no. Back in them days, they didn't use the term gay. They just called him and say he's funny.
Wait a minute. You went in the water with this guy.
Yeah, we were.
And he went under the water.
He go in the mud. And he
put his.
Blew you? Where he put your thing in his mouth. Yeah. I thought it was a fish biting my thing. And then my oldest brother, Charles, saw him doing it. And she said, get out the water, told us to get out the water. So I got out the water real fast. Then another time, I was about 11 years old in Covington, Virginia. And this guy came with a police badge, told me he was a policeman. And he took me up in the woods and he tried to rape me. And my brother Norris took a tree limb. And he beat him with a tree limb. So I almost got raped twice by guys.
And your brother saved you the second time?
Both times, yeah. Because we all stuck together, all us brothers. You know, it was 5 boys and 4 girls.
You didn't even get into this in your book.
Well, no, he wouldn't put it. I told him the story. He wouldn't put it in.
I wonder why.
He didn't want to talk about that stuff.
Well, it's part of your life story, you know?
Well, if you read my book, he talked very little on my foot fetish, too. He didn't want to get into that stuff. That was just...
He wanted to stick to the wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
mainly what he really wanted to talk to me about was drugs. I mean, once we got to talk about the drugs, I mean, they were like the whole freaking book was about drugs. It was 1 year of my life, and he made it sound like it was every day of my life.
You know, when I do get in,
drugs were big during that time.
When we get on those topics, Tony, I like to be very zoned in on it, and I like to get the facts straight on that because it's very important that the story is told honestly.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that you were sexually assaulted as a kid.
Yeah.
Did it affect you?
Yeah.
Did it have anything to do with the feet?
No. What it did for me though, I joined the police athletic league. I want to learn how to knock your ass out when you test me.
So what happened with this man that?
Well, the first guy
got you underwater.
Where the first guy, he came along, they had this thing called Big Brothers.
Right.
And he would go around, he was supposed to take kids and teach them how to hunt and how to camp and how to fish and all this stuff. So we was fishing, and he said, ain't y'all hot? And we go, yeah. And he said, come on, let's go swimming. And we said, well, I got no trunk. He said, you ever hear of skinny dipping? I go, no. He said, just take your clothes off and jump in. There's nobody around, nobody gonna see you. So, you know, we kids, we don't know nobody. We take our clothes off, we jumped in the water. Wow. So he take all his clothes off, he jumped in the water. So first we just wrestled around in the water and everything. And then all of a sudden, you know, he disappeared and I'm looking around for it. Whoa, what the world is that? And then all of a sudden I tell my brother, I say, somebody's messing with me on the water. And my brother Charles said, what is it, what is it? So then I felt it again. So my brother Charles went underneath the water, and he told me, he said, get out the water, get out the water. So we got out the water, so my brother Charles, we get up on the bank, and the guy was still in the water. My brother Charles, he said, get your clothes, let's go, let's go, let's go. So we take off running with our clothes, and we got no clothes on.
You were naked when you were running away?
Naked, and we running home with no clothes on. So finally, when we got out the woods, we went behind the church there, because that was close by. It was and then we put our clothes on before we went home, and so he came the next day, and all my brothers saw him coming, and they all ran and hid. Well, being Tony, I wasn't the brightest kid in the family, you know, so I was too stupid to run. So he saw me in the house, and my mother said, "Well, I don't know where them other boys at." She said, "But my mother's name is Gerald." And my mother called me Gerald because my grandmother gave me that name. It's Anthony Gerald White. They said, well, Gerald is here. Gerald, come on. So-and-so is here. And I go, and she said, well, what's wrong? I go, so my mother knew something was up, so she pulled me back in the back room and she said, now what? Why you don't want to go with him? I said, Mom, he messed with you. And she said, what's wrong with him? I said, Mom, he's funny. And she said, well, did he touch you? I go, yes, ma'am. So she went back to him. She said, look, I want you to stay away from my boy. And he kind of made a lunge like he was going to go towards me. And I remember my mom just said, bright in my day, take both her arms and put them up on the door just like that. She said, look, I don't want no trouble. I just want you to leave my boys alone. I don't want no trouble. I remember she saying that to him. I don't want no trouble. I just want you to leave my boys alone. And he gave me a look like, if I catch you by yourself, I'm going to do something to you. It was just a mean, mean look. And he turned and walked away. I never seen him again.
I wonder if anything ever happened to the guy.
No.
I'm sure you weren't the only one he ever did it to.
No.
What a despicable human being.
But there was a lot of
I can't imagine what would make someone go through their mind to want to do that
there
to
was
a
a lot of-
7-year-old kid.
But there was a lot of that going on. There was 12 and 13-year-old girls in my neighborhood that was pregnant. And the guys that did it was in their 30s and 40s. That was common back there. And like if a
Well,
man,
you know, those are the type of people that deserve a severe case of cancer.
what kind
in
of
my
look at
opinion.
what was the
What
guy?
a horrible human being.
What was the guy Jeffrey Dahmer there? The guy that was killing all them kids. One of the kids escaped, and the police took him back. And said, "Oh, they're just two gays."
Yeah, they didn't.
That's how
care,
they look
yeah.
at it there. It was not looked at child molestation there. If they see a man and a boy, they say it's two gays. They didn't look at the fact.
Well, you were 7 years old, Tony. I mean,
back then it didn't. It was no law against it.
there was no. What do you mean there was no law against it?
It was not implemented.
There was no law against a man with big brothers
No,
trying to give you oral sex in a pond?
nope. They went on all the time. What
do you mean it went on
there
all the time?
There was a lot of guys that got raped. I see a lot of guys coming out the woods crying, and then see some grown man walking the other way. Yeah, it went on all the time. Yeah, I seen it a lot when I was a kid. That's what got me into all this shit.
To protect yourself.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yep.
Wow.
I started my career with the police athletic leg.
Right.
They just called it power. And I went there and I used to box at first. I started off as a boxer. Then I saw them weights. Then I turned into weightlifter because a guy called Buddy Ball. They called him Buddy Ball because when he was young, he was fat. And they used to call him Buddy Ball because he was fat. So what he did, he started lifting weights and lost the body fat and built up muscles. But the name stuck, Buddy Ball, because I said, why they call him Buddy Ball? He was big, had a chest out like this, you know, all up about it, no legs, but just upstairs. So he told me, he said, yeah, kid, if you get big and strong, ain't nobody gonna mess with you. And that's what got me into weightlifting.
Well, I'm glad it did.
I did it for protection.
I never knew you had to go through that, Tony.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sorry you did.
Yep. A lot of guys did. A lot of guys did. But luckily for me, that when we went somewhere, when you called me to go somewhere in the olden days, all my brothers went with me.
Yeah.
If I was by myself, I probably would have gotten more would have happened because I couldn't defend myself against a grown man, you know. But because my brother was there.
As far as you know, that man just vanished? You never saw him around town again?
No.
Really?
No.
Did he?
See, once the parents found out, see, that's what a lot of kids, of kids that get molested don't understand. They would tell you not to tell your parents because once the parents find out, you safe. As long as nobody don't know, you are unsafe. I became safe the next day because I told my mom, and from that day on, I was safe from every predator in the neighborhood. And that's happened in Lowmore, Virginia. The first time it happened to me was in Lowmore, Virginia. But I didn't have to worry about nobody in Roanoke, Virginia because every predator from that day on knew that I would tell. Then
you were dangerous to them.
Right,
You'd
it was dangerous for them.
I hate to use the word,
trouble.
but you'd break kayfabe.
Yeah, I told, you know, I was a stooge. See, in my neighborhood, it was bad to be a stooge. I was a stooge. I told.
No, you had to in that case.
But that was my protection. Once I told, I didn't have to worry about anybody messing with me again because my mom would tell my neighbor, watch out, if you see anybody messing around with my boys, you let me know. So the neighborhood started watching out for me too. So that was my protection by telling. Then when I went to Covington, my brother Norris, he must have broke the limb off the tree. Because the guy, me and him, we were fighting like hell. I had a black eye, a busted lip, my nose was bleeding. You know, he beat the crap out of me.
The second time, when you were 11, I think you said.
I was about 11.
A guy, did you know the guy?
No, he showed me a police badge.
He pretended he was a cop.
He was police,
and he wanted to rape you.
Right.
And you started to have a fist fight with him?
Yeah.
And your brother broke a limb off a tree.
Yeah, and how I knew it was a limb off a tree because when he hit him, leaves and everything went everywhere. I mean, you could stick the branches. It was just, you know, they had leaves. It still had the leaves on it. So I figured it didn't fall off, but the leaves been dead.
Right.
And he started whacking him with the thing, and he told me to run. And I ran, and then my brother ran behind me, Norris. Now my brother Norris, he lives in Washington State now, and he served 35 years in the military as a Green Beret.
You've told me about him before on the phone.
Tough boy. But he saved me. My mom the first time. Well, my brother Charles, because Charles looked under the water and saw there was no fish messing with me. If this guy go in the water, he'd feel on you, touch you under the water. And he would go under the water like this, you know, and do things. And my brother Charles saved me then, my big brother Charles. And then my other big brother, Norris, saved me the second time for being molested by a guy.
Does it bother you nowadays?
No.
It's not something you. I know a
No.
lot of.
No, because the way I see it, what don't kill you make you stronger. If it hadn't been for them two incidents, I probably would have never got into sports. But once I started learning how to box, then when I was in the 7th grade, I got on the wrestling team. Then I went to the YMCA, I lift weights. I took up judo. I was in a judo class. I was in a wrestling class. You know, I was lifting weights, and that's all I did all day long was box, wrestle, and lift weights. Box, wrestle, and lift weights. I did nothing else. I was a lifeguard for a while too, because I wanted to learn how to swim. So I would just.
You took a negative and you made it a positive.
Yep. Because back in the olden days, what kids did when something happened to them, they would fix it so it don't happen again. See, I didn't want to be a victim. Some people make themselves a victim. They cry about what happened to them. Where crying about what happened to you is not going to fix what happened to you. What will fix what happened to you is so that you do something to make it not happen to you again. Like I tell I work with a lot of females, and I tell them, if you get molested or assaulted by a man, learn karate or learn how to shoot a gun. Learn how to protect yourself. You know, don't sit around and cry about what happened to you, because it can happen again. You have to fix it. It's kind of like your tire. You're driving down the street, you get a flat tire. Now you can stand out there complaining about having a flat tire, or you can fix it. Instead of me complaining about the flat tire, I decided to fix it. Now there was one time in my life where I didn't do that. I started blaming Vince. I started blaming WWE for my failure. Then I woke up one day and I said, Tony, it takes two to tango. So now when I do, I look at not what someone else did wrong to me. I look at what I did wrong to put myself in that position for them to do that to me. If I had been making my shows and doing what I was supposed to be doing and was sober and not stoned every night, Vince, I would have never been in the position for Vince to do what he did to me. So how I look at it now, my success in life I owe to thousands of people. My failure I owe to just me, you know, and that's how I dealt with everything. Yes, I got a problem here. I could sit here and I could complain about my problem, or I could do something about my problem so I don't have this problem in the future. Well, and that's how I live my life now. That's why you never hear me blame Vince for what happened to me, because I put myself in the position for him to do that.
Well, I tell you, I have a very good friend that was molested and raped by her stepfather, and it stuck with her whole life. It's good in a sense that you overcame it. I mean, you can talk about it like it's the back of your hand. And
because I did. The reason I can talk about it, because I know it could never, ever happen again. Never. Wow. And that's what makes me feel good about that. Something tragic happened to me as a child. And I put a stop to it. I put a stop to it. I didn't wait for the law enforcement to do it. I didn't wait for the city to do it. I didn't wait for the state to do it. I didn't wait for the government to do it. I took the bull by the horn and I did it for myself.
Yeah, I don't know how comfortable or uncomfortable you are talking about it at different times, but yeah, I'm glad you've shared it. Maybe there are people that can hear your story and get something from it.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because if you know something can happen to you and you take no precaution to keep it from happening again, then really you are, the first time that a person get molested, they share no blame the first time. The second time a person get molested, they share some of the blame because they are aware of the fact that this can happen. And they took no precaution to keep it from happening again. You have to take precaution for when tragedy happens in your life. Instead of sitting around playing the victim, you have to do something to make sure that you don't have to repeat that. So that's where I look at it. It happened. I can't change it, but I could make sure it don't happen again. It could never. Nobody could stop anything from happening the first time. But you do have a little bit of say-so in what happened to you the second time, because you should have took some precautions.
Right.
Like if you driving your car and check engine light come on and you ignore it, then all of a sudden you find yourself standing on the side of the road. Well, you got warning. You had a warning. You didn't heed to the warning.
Yeah.
When that first molester came out to me and then the second one came out to me, there was 2 warnings that this is possible. This happened to kids. So how can I protect myself as a child? My mother taught me one way. I was good with rocks.
Oh, I'm sure that would do the trick, yeah.
We used to take rocks, little rocks, we put them in our pocket. And when something grown up go to mess with them, we reach in our pocket and throw rocks at them.
Wow.
And you had five little black kids rocking your ass.
That'll make it go away, right? Yeah.
We will rock you, let me tell you. And we was good too, we had good aim.
Well, I just think there's more good that can come out of your story than you even know with what you're sharing tonight.
You have to do something about things that happen. You can't sit around and wait for the government to do it for you.
That's for sure.
And you can't blame the government. They can't be everywhere at once. You can't blame the policemen. They can't be everywhere at once. The policemen get there as quickly as they can, but you have to take some precaution yourself so things don't happen to you. Any man that raises a daughter and don't teach that daughter how to defend herself and take care of herself in life, when something happens to that little girl, he is just as responsible as the person that did it, because he did not teach his daughter how to survive in society. Because there's 96,000 sexual assault on women every year. 96,000. It's kind of like, this is my message. If I go too long, let me know. This is my message, message to Black Lives Matter. Great message. Wrong audience. 90% of black homicide is done by blacks, not by cops. We want to blame the policemen for their 1% and ignore the 90%. Black men, if you is man enough to make a baby, be man enough to help that woman raise that child. 70-some%. I don't know the exact number, but it's over 70%. Over 70% of black kids grow up without a father. Now, how can you desert your family, leave your family to struggle for themselves, and then blame society for your lack of responsibility? How can you blame the police department for the killing of black young men when it's killing 90% of black homicide is done by blacks? How can you blame the government when black on black crime is the highest crime rate in America? How can you blame the government when blacks make up 13% of American population and 60% of incarceration? Sometime in our lives, and I'm a black man, sometime in black people's lives, they're going to have to take responsibility. Now, this is for black men only, because the black woman has been the backbone of the black neighborhood since I was born. That's why if you ever want to make any black man mad, talk about his mom. Because our mothers are dear to us, because she was there for us when nobody else were. My mother went to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, got off at 2, went back at 3, and worked until 11 o'clock at night, 5 days a week, and went to work on Saturday from 7 to 2. On Sunday, she would not work. They tried to get her to work. She wouldn't work on Sunday because it was God's day. She believed in God. She was a Christian. Now, if my mother could do that to raise us kids, how come my dad couldn't do a man can't do the same thing.
Your dad
If
left
you can't take care of children, don't have them. Don't use a woman for your own sexual gratification and assume that that woman needs you more than she ever needs you anytime in your life. You're not there. 70% of black kids grow up without a father. And when I say without, I mean nowhere, not financially, he's not there financially, he's not there emotionally, he's not there. My dad was one of them men. Luckily for me, I had a strong black woman to raise me. She said, boy, I had to be both mother and father to you. So if black people want to find what is wrong with the black neighborhood, look in the frickin' mirror.
All right, Tony. Certainly, we weren't planning on tonight, but
it's
been a night of revelations, to say the least.
It's the truth. Look at the statistics.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is right now, I can't get into wrestling at this point. We're going to take a brief time out. When we come back, we're going to continue through Tony's journey through the late 80s after leaving WWE. Stand by. Wrestling fans, welcome back to what's turned into a very emotional Survivor Series weekend episode of Memories and Legends. We went some places I never even imagined we would, because I didn't know we were going to go there, Tony. But we talked 1986. Your first stop was the big anniversary show in Puerto Rico for Carlos Colon. You said you'd worked there before during your WWF run. What was it like to work for Carlos Colon himself here now, semi-regularly?
I'm going to say what every wrestler that ever said before the death of Bruiser Brody, it's a paid vacation. I mean, you couldn't find a better place to work nowhere on this planet. I mean, you got the beaches, you got the palm trees, you got the Caribbean food, you got
beautiful
the Caribbean
Spanish
music.
women, as my good friend Dr. Scott would say.
Spanish women running all over the place. And McMahon is, I may add, you know, beautiful white sand beaches, beautiful, the blue, crystal clear water, hotels, beautiful hotels. The food was marvelous, you know. It was a paid vacation. The longest trip. The whole island is only 90 miles long and 40 miles wide.
Wow.
The whole island.
How many regular stops would there be for the territory?
We wrestle all the way down. We wrestle in San Juan, Ponce, Aguadillos.
But were these weekly stops?
No, they did 4 days a week.
4 days, okay.
Yeah, we wrestle 4 days a week and then 1 day of TV. So it was 5 days a week, but most of the time, like I said, the trips were so close. I mean, the longest trip was an hour and a half.
Wow.
And the show back then didn't start at 8 o'clock. So
you had all day?
We had all day to do whatever the tarnation we want. Then sometime around 4 or 5 o'clock, we leave to go to the town about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. So you have from the time you got up all the way until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, do whatever you want. Was a paid vacation. And the money was good.
Yeah.
I mean, there was guys going in and out of Puerto Rico back then making $70,000, $80,000 a year.
Wow.
Just from
That's
Puerto
good
Rico
money
alone.
for a paid vacation,
Very
right?
good money. I don't mind saying it now because my taxes been paid and everything. I used to average about, in 4 days, about $3,500
wow.
Yeah, for 4 days.
And
that's back in the 80s.
How did that compare to WWF money?
It was good too. WWF money was good too.
Comparable though between Puerto Rico and WWF?
To me, the WWF paid less now. The reason is because the price of living have went up.
Yeah.
You take a man now making $100,000 a year with the WWE, it's like in my day a guy making $25,000 a year because of the cost of living. Back in the 80s. You could buy yourself a brand new, well, I bought a brand new 1980 Corvette. Mm-hmm. I paid $15,000 for it.
Wow.
So you could get a brand new Cadillac for $15,000, $20,000.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now that Corvette is $40,000. You could buy a home back in the 80s for anywhere between 35 to 65,000 back then. Now that same home would cost you 200,000. You see, you could go to stay in a hotel back in the 80s for 50, 60 bucks a night. Now a cheap hotel is $150.
Right? Right? Look at some of our adventures this year, right?
You know, it's $150.
Right?
You know, for I wouldn't say a cheap hotel, but you know, a hotel that don't have a lot of accommodation.
Right.
Now, if you want to stay in a hotel like where Marty in, or
this
you know,
goddamn fly has been bothering me the whole show, Tony.
Eat him.
I don't know if I got him or not.
The price of living have went up.
No, I didn't.
Have went up. I mean, gasoline have went up. The price of automobiles have went up. I used to go down to Garden State Parkway in the 90s, the Garden Way Park State in New Jersey. The tolls were 35 cents. Now them tolls are, $2. I used to cross the GW when the tolls was $1.50 in the 90s. Was maybe $2 or $3 at most. I remember one time when it went up to $5, I couldn't believe I paid $5 to cross this bridge. Now it's $19.
To go into Long Island, it's $15, yeah.
$15 just to cross that bridge. It used to be $3.
Wow.
So the cost of living.
Yeah, that's life, yeah.
Yeah, the cost of living have improved, but the income for most, not all wrestlers, but I would say a majority of them is not up to today's standards. So for a lot of the guys, I made more money in the 80s than what they making now, simply because of the cost of living. $100 grand a year is not much, because one thing, you're self-employed.
You have to take out the hotels.
Right.
And the,
Well, not only that, $100 grand for a person that's self-employed, 52,000 of that money is his. 48,000 is Uncle Sam.
Before all the write-offs, right?
Without write-off. Without write-off is 40.
Right.
Yeah, unless you got write-offs.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have no write-off. It's over $40,000. Almost 40% of that is gone to, over 40% is taxes. So what guys have to do, they have to have a lot of write-off. So when they pay their taxes, instead of paying taxes, if you got like $20,000 or $30,000 worth of write-off, instead of paying taxes on $100 grand, you pay taxes on 70 grand.
Right.
The old-time wrestler believe anything you make over 60 grand is for the government. Every penny over 60 grand on 100 grand is for the government. So really, when I say 60 is yours, 40 is Uncle Sam, because you self-employed, and Vince takes nothing out of your check.
Right.
Nothing. So you just get a flat check.
A lot of guys get in trouble that way.
Well, a lot of guys are uninsured for that too.
Right.
Because they can't afford insurance. They don't have insurance. The state and federal tax. You go to the state and what wrestlers do, they have to pay taxes in every state they go.
Right. Complicated. All right, Tony, all in all, was Puerto Rico a good place to make a living for you?
Puerto Rico was a wonderful place to make a living for me.
From mid-'86 to 1988, when the Bruiser Brody tragedy happened, what would you grade it like it was in school? A, B, C?
I would give it an A+.
A+, really? The money was good enough?
Who did not want to go? I mean, most of the guys couldn't wait. You take there's one guy that made his whole living in Puerto Rico and Japan, Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah, sure.
He became a millionaire from just wrestling them two places. He wrestled a little bit in the States.
He didn't need the U.S.
The late Bruiser Brody.
Same thing.
He made most of his money in Japan. The Funk, Turd Funk, he made most of his money in Japan. He didn't make his money here. The guy that Vince got right now, this kid right here, AJ Styles.
Yeah.
I mean, where was AJ all these years?
TNA.
See, and Japan.
He had a short run in Japan before he came to WWE.
That's right.
Like I said, I really wanted to play the name game with some of the superstars and wrestlers you were around. With the turn this program took, we're going to have to do a separate episode on that in the future, which will be a lot of fun. Also want to talk about 1986. We mentioned it before. You headed into world-class championship wrestling down in Texas, run by the Von Erich family.
The Von Erichs were their own worst enemy.
Why is that?
They would not let anybody get big if you was not a Von Erich. And that's where they ran into their biggest mistake. They thought more of the brand than they did of the fans. And whenever you put yourself above the fan, give you a prime example. They had the Ultimate Warrior.
Dingo Warrior. And
He was a Dingo Warrior, and he was a heel, and he was drawing them a lot of money. So finally, they put him as babyface. And to put add injury to it, then they stopped booking him.
Wow.
That's when I left and went to Puerto Rico, and he left and went with Vince.
WWF in 1987.
He was in World Class, and they was not even using him. They even left him off the card because they couldn't find no way of destroying him in the ring.
They even went to
Because
the
Curry-
extent of making up pretend Von Erichs. He had Lance the cousin.
Yeah.
In the tragedies of all the deaths. When you
Yeah.
arrived in World Class, did you know in late 1986 that this was a promotion that was headed for a nosedive?
I did not.
It was, how, well,
Well, George Scott had it, when he went there, he had it going.
yeah.
But the problem that he ran into them, George Scott wanted to develop other talent.
Other than Von Erichs.
Other than Von Erich. He did not believe in wrapping the territory around one person. Because if you don't have that one person, you got nothing. See how smart Vince was? I think he got Hulk Hogan to where Hogan needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
He reached back, he built Paul Orndorff.
Right.
He built Randy Savage. He built Stone Cold. So when Hogan was no longer with the WWE, Vince was able to continue drawing big houses with Stone Cold Steve Austin, with Bret the Hitman Hart.
Right.
You know, he didn't rep the territory. It was the brand WWE is what draws the crowd, not
Right.
the wrestler. You take like right now, all these guys, AJ Styles, all these guys, every one of them could lead them off.
And it wouldn't hurt the brand.
It would not hurt
Right.
the brand.
It was different in the territory.
But in the olden days, if AJ Styles had left or not showed up, it would have killed everything.
Were you in World Class when Kerry Von Erich lost his foot?
No,
You were, okay.
no.
I know you were there. I think it was Mike passed away. Were you?
Yeah.
And take us back to that. Mike, not someone that really had the look of an athlete or a professional wrestler. Was he someone that you think was just kind of pushed into the family business?
Well, all of them was.
Well, I mean, Kerry was a great athlete. Kevin could get in there and work.
Yeah.
Then you had Mike, and you know.
Well, the father wanted all of them to be
Right.
in the business. You know, it was just that thing, because these were the kids that were going to take over when the business for him.
Right.
But he wanted to keep them, and they was good athletes, don't get me wrong, and they drew money. But like you said, once a book been read, it's old, and there was so much good talent that never got they wouldn't let it grow. You know, they had Bam Bam Bigelow there.
You won I think the TV title from him.
Yeah, and they did nothing with Bam Bam. You know, they had.
What was a young Bam Bam like?
The same as always. Just a very nice, big, strong, very agile, a great athlete.
Yeah,
One of the
for a
best
big guy,
men.
sure.
For a big man, I mean, one of the best big
Absolutely,
men I've seen in the
absolutely.
business. But the same thing with Bam Bam. They didn't do much with.
He wasn't even
with
Bam
him.
Bam there. He was Crusher Yurov.
Yeah, but they never did nothing. A great talent. They had Black Bart there. They didn't do much with. Barry Windham came through. Everybody came through, but they wasn't the only one. That's why it was so easy for Vince to put these people out of business. You take like in Memphis, Jerry the King Lawler let nobody get above Jerry. I mean, when you started drawing money, Jerry found some way of knocking you down. Same thing in Florida. Dusty Rhodes, if you start getting bigger than Mike Graham or getting bigger than Dusty Rhodes, you out the door, brother.
On to the next territory.
You on to the next territory. And what made Vince so great was the fact that he let the wrestlers be the wrestlers. If you could put asses in the seat, he's going to push you. You know, he didn't.
There was no McMahon he had to worry about.
Exactly. And even when he did win in the ring, he went in to make other wrestlers look good.
Look at what he did for Austin, right?
Not himself. I mean, look at what he did with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold would not been as big as he was, believe it or not. Stone Cold Steve Austin's greatest opponent was Vince McMahon.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Vince made Stone Cold. That when we were fighting the establishment.
Right.
He represents the establishment. And here comes this redneck gimmick he had, biker redneck gimmick, and this guy to come from the other side of the tracks going to come and take on the establishment. That was the biggest thing that ever happened.
You know what?
It was as big as the Hogan Hulkamania.
Hogan might have been a bigger mainstream star. Rock might have gone on to Hollywood to make all kinds of money. But when it comes to putting asses in the seats,
Stone
television
Cold Steve
ratings,
Austin.
merchandise, I don't know if we'll ever see a superstar bigger than Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No, even now.
No
Even
one.
now. I saw him last year, and he had a line of people to see him a mile long.
Down in when we were in New Orleans.
New Orleans,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. You know, and Stone Cold he's just that type of person, and he's legitimate. Well, World Class had him first, and Cactus Jack, Nick Foley, went there to Bill Watts and Dusty Rhodes. That I was standing right beside him because I rode to the TV with him, and he told the booker there, he said, y'all need to do something with this kid. He was stunning Steve Austin there, had long blonde hair. He said, this kid is one of the best wrestlers we got. Y'all need to do something with him. And they ignored Nick Foley. Yeah. And then Vince got a hold of him about a year or two later and made
Well, he had
millions.
a lengthy stay in WCW, yeah.
But they did nothing with him.
He was really, you'd see, look at him as someone they were grooming to be maybe like a top heel, almost like in the Ric Flair type style.
Yes.
Never would you have seen that guy and think he's going to go on to become what he became. And I thought he was great as stunning Steve Austin.
Yes.
But what he became in WWE is just, it speaks for itself.
Vince turned him loose.
The biggest superstar in the history of the industry.
Vince turned him loose. Vince gave him the green light.
And that's one, you know, John Cena Sr. and I debate things hot and heavy sometimes when he's here. But that's one I'll fight until the death about. There is no one that did the business that Steve Austin did.
No.
No one. There
No.
is no one.
No.
Take your Cenas, your Rocks, your Hogans, your Brunos, anyone you want to name in WWE history, they didn't do the business that Stone Cold did.
When that glass broke, when he had that breaking glass, and he come down that aisle, boy, the face went. And you know, right now today, if that music star, the billing would come unglued. Today.
Want to hear a fact, Tony? WWE had me as a guest at the WrestleMania in Dallas, WrestleMania 32, and they did a angle where the League of Nations, I think they were called, and they brought out three legends, Foley, Shawn Michaels, and then Steve Austin to just, not a match, but just fight with them in the ring. Austin's pop was so loud, it was almost like the building went silent. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but there was 100,000 people in the venue. It was like there was no sound in the building. It was so loud. It was amazing. It was amazing.
And I'm going to tell you something that I forgot about.
What's that?
But if you watch my introduction, when I got inducted in WWE Hall of Fame, Steve told me something that I forgot about.
What's that?
In 1988, in Denton, Texas, I competed in the World Bench Press Championship. And with this football team that came to they was wrestling fans, and they came to the powerlifting meet to see one Tony Atlas. And one of them guys that was on the football team in 1988 was Steve Austin.
Really? All right.
Steve Austin came all the way he was going to school there. He was in college. And he used to follow me when I was in World Class.
You've ever been a guest on his podcast?
No, never had.
You should. I think it'd be great.
But he's the one that told me the story, and then he tell the story about me that he went to the gym to work out with me. And he was just in the football team. And he said he was doing reps. He was over there working out with 225 pounds. And he looked over and he saw me doing reps with 500.
Wow.
And he said that at the Hall of Fame there. And he said he'd never seen nothing like me. He said every time I used to go to a contest, he would go to watch me lift in the contest.
We ran into a funny situation with him. It was back in 2007. WWE was releasing a movie with him called The Condemned, and they did a premiere here in Boston. And on very, very, very short notice, they wanted to get a crowd in there for it, and we helped them get 200 to fill the movie theater. And he came in and he did a Q&A. And great guy. I like Steve Austin a lot.
He's one of the best people you want to meet in your life.
Like him a lot.
I think the world of Steve.
A man's man.
Yes,
a guy.
Yes, but
not a prima donna.
No. Steve, when I was in, he had a crowd, like I say, a mile long, and somebody told him Tony Atlas was out there. Tony Atlas, come on in here. So he just, and another guy that never changed. If you ever meet him, it's gonna be one of your greatest people you'll meet. Believe it or not, no matter what they say about Hulk Hogan.
Hey, we had a great
Hulk
show
is
on
a
that. Hulk
great
Hogan loved the
person,
show
brother.
that we did about him.
Yeah, Hogan is a great person.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Steve.
I'm
Steve
very
is one of the
impressed
best
with
people.
Hogan. Two different types of guys,
Yep.
but
And,
good
and
guys.
The Rock is good people too.
Well, I don't really know him as well.
Well,
as
if
the
you
other
ever
two.
meet him, he make you feel like you the star. He's a wonderful person.
All right, Tony, you went up after you left World Class around Thanksgiving 1987. It was on to the ICW with the Savoldis. That was a promotion that was also in decline almost before it even got started. It had a good run, but it never really reached what you'd consider a full-time territory status where you could make a good living.
Well, this is what happened.
All right.
They had Bob Orton Jr.,
Yep.
Alvin Puskett, myself. Had a lot of good talent.
Mm-hmm.
During them days, and I'm not blaming Vince for doing it, every time you run a show, Vince would come in the night before.
He did it everywhere.
That's how come they never got off the ground. But we sold out the Augusta Civic, so the Mario was selling out a lot of buildings.
In the Savoldi family, Angelo was in it with Vince Sr.
Yeah, but he
many
was the only
decades back.
Well, he was the only one that didn't sell out.
Oh, really?
Monsoon sold out, Skolin sold out, Phil Zacher sold out. All the promoters sold their shares to Vince.
Vince McMahon Jr.
Jr. Senior, Angelo Savoldi was the only one, he said he wanted to keep it for his sons. So Vince said, well, if you want to sell, I would just run you out of business. So every time the Savoldi run a show, Vince would book the billing the month before. I mean, the week before or something. He would run a show.
So the fans spent their wrestling money.
He would divide the money.
All right, Tony, so take us through what would be a couple of difficult years for you. You were in ICW, nowhere else full-time in 88, 1989. You developed some bad habits. Take us through that, Tony.
Well, after Mario folded,
Now, you were kind of stranded in the Northeast,
I
didn't
was
you?
stranded in Maine.
Now, where were you living at that point?
I was staying in first I was staying with this girl.
All right. Now, what state?
Louis, Maine.
Okay.
And then what ended up happening was Vince put Mario out of business.
Okay.
Mario put me on a $75,000 a year contract. He
Gave
said,
you a guarantee?
Yeah.
Really?
Said,
Okay.
He said, I know it's not what you used to.
But it's something.
He said, but here you can live good in Maine, you know, $1,500 a week. You can
Sure,
live
yeah.
real good in Maine. He was running 4 shows a week. So then 4 shows went from like 4 shows down to 2 shows, down to 1 show a week, down to 1 show a month.
Wow. So
I
that
mean,
guarantee was...
Right, because what Vince did, he would buy the building. So you couldn't get the big buildings. I mean, Mario was stuck with running, you know, little armories and little high school.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was hard to pay top guys.
75 grand a year.
Yeah, because like when you book a wrestler, a lot of people don't realize a wrestler want a certain amount for his pay.
Sure.
Then you got to pay. Now let's say, for example, one night you're going to pay this wrestler $500 for one night, but you got to fly him in. So that's another $400 for his plane ticket. You got to give him a hotel room. So that's another $100 or $200.
Yeah.
Right. So by the time it's all said and done, just for this one guy, these promoters, even though the wrestler only getting $500, these promoters putting out $1,200 to $1,500 for one wrestler. So you got 2 guys coming in. That's $3,000 just for 2 people. Plus you have to pay for the advertisement, pay for the book. So
You get it. I love it. I wish everybody had your mindset.
Well, yeah, but there was a lot of costs.
Sure,
Overhead costs.
That had nothing to do with wrestling.
That had nothing to do with the wrestling at all. Then the guys that were doing that, they had the commissioner. We had to buy the guy's license. They got to have license.
Oh, the commissions,
right?
please.
And don't forget the insurance.
Yeah, the insurance.
And the insurance, the way it worked with wrestling, because you're not what you call a regular run business. You can't get a yearly insurance. You got to get insurance per show.
Really?
Which costs you arm and a leg, you know, under the commissioner. Every show you have to get commission. Had to get insurance for every. You couldn't get it for the year. It had to be
Couldn't buy it in bulk.
Couldn't buy it in the bulk. It would be cheaper in bulk. They couldn't do that way. And plus, with Vince coming into town every week, every time you ran a show, he would book one in the same town. It made it very, very hard. So what ended up happening to me, with Mario Foley, now y'all got to realize, I got into pro wrestling right after high school. So I never had a chance to make a living doing anything but wrestling.
Right.
So when I took it, my wrestling career came to a squeaking halt.
So the Savaldis tell you we can't live up to the $75,000 a year.
Right.
And you're in Maine.
Right.
1988, 1989. You
Right.
just went through the Brody murder that you had to witness.
Right.
Kicked to the curb by WWF.
Right.
Left world class.
Right.
Puerto Rico you weren't going back to.
Right.
Developed some drug problems.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was staying, back then they had rooms at the YMCA.
So you were living at a Y.
I was living at the YMCA and I was paying $120 a month for a room. A month? Yeah,
Well, but
yeah. It
not
was
that
just
bad.
one room. I was nothing
Yeah,
in it.
but
The only thing they had in it,
$120.
the only thing was in it was a bed and a dresser. So I went out and I bought myself a little TV. So I had a little small TV there. And then I had one of these little portable refrigerator that I could put food in. And I had a hot plate. I used to cook on a hot plate. You know, it had 2 burners. And I had my pot, one pan, 1 plate, 1 bowl, 1 cup. And I had a little plug-in coffee pot so I could get my coffee in the morning. And that's all I had. And
After all your years traveling the world, being a celebrity in WWF,
Yeah.
all you had was a $120 room at the YMCA
Yeah.
with a bed and dresser that weren't even yours.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That was
How
it.
did you get to that point, Tony? How did you have nothing?
Well, you see, what ended up happening after of all that moving around, and I went through 2 divorces, and a lot of guys went through that. And what Vince was smart. He wait until you need the job when he fire you. That's what he do. See, what I did every time I got divorced, whatever money I had, I left it with that woman and my child. You know, and that's how I did. Because I always
do you have
felt,
1 or 2 kids?
I had 1, but
One,
I
that's what I
always
thought.
felt that I would make it again. Wrestlers in the younger days, they always felt that they would make it again because there was territory.
Right.
There was always a place to go. So if they didn't work out here, we could go here and start over again. So I came home one day. I was living off the money I had, and that lasted about 6 months. And then all of a sudden, I came 1 month. I couldn't pay my rent. So I came to my room one day. I was out job hunting, and every time I put down a job, they said occupation. I said wrestler. You know, wrestler. So I couldn't find a job.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I had no trade. I started wrestling when I had my first match when I was 20. So I mean, I never did nothing. So finally, they set my stuff outside my door.
They took everything out of the Y, really. You couldn't even afford the $120 a month. What drugs were you doing, Tony?
No, I wasn't on drugs then.
You
I
said
was
88 and 89.
Yep. That's where I got started. But first, when they set me out the Y, I was working for a construction company doing
Really?
roofing.
Okay, I could see you doing that.
Yeah,
You're
I
a
was
big,
doing
strong
roofing.
guy.
See, in Maine, they're my summer jobs. Construction.
Not year-round,
Most
right.
of the guys during the winter in Maine, what they do, they put a plow on the front of their truck, and they go plow. That's how they make their winter money.
Yeah.
Unless you button up, if you got a big project and you get the place buttoned up before winter hit, then what the guys would do, they would do the outside, and then you got the indoor work, you know, the sheetrock, you know, doing sheetrock and doing inlaid and stuff like that, and building cabinets. You know, you could do that if you're lucky. But most of the time, they would lay off a lot of help during the winter months because there's no construction going on in the winter. Hell, you can't dig nothing in the winter. That ground is froze solid,
Right.
brother.
Oh, in Maine,
it's
absolutely,
like concrete.
yeah,
I mean, that ground like concrete. Even the backhoe have a hard time getting through that dirt.
Right.
So anyway, I end up leaving the Y. So then I went and took all my stuff, my trophies, and I was sleeping at the city park. Then I saw.
So what year are we talking now?
89.
And this 89 was when you became homeless.
Yep, 1989.
How were you able to wrestle? How were you able to contact people?
I didn't wrestle in during the 80s.
In 1989, you didn't wrestle at all? Really?
No, just Mario.
So was it that you were spending all the money on drugs that you were getting your hands on?
I was just working for Mario. And Mario would run his show maybe once a month.
Well, what about when you were doing the construction work.
With that, they pay you under the table a lot up in Maine.
Right. Okay.
So you get $200 a week. That don't go very far. So and then when winter came, Mario had no shows.
Yeah.
Did no construction work. So I went about six months there with no work. So I ended up homeless. I couldn't work construction no more. I couldn't get a job nowhere. And Mario was not running any shows.
And you had nowhere to go.
I knew nothing about independent. I didn't even know independent existed.
There was nowhere you could go.
Nowhere to go. Stuck in the rocking place. So I went
Stuck in the middle of Maine.
In the middle of Maine in the dead of winter. So I spent the first winter.
All right, Tony, you know what, though? With the way we're going with this, we were going to wait for our good friend, Dr. David Reese, to join us about how the situation really came to an end. As far as 86 to 89 goes, I didn't realize in 89 you didn't wrestle at all. Really? Well, we're going to talk about the homelessness and what got you back into the game. And
My career started back with Saba Simba.
Well, we're going to talk about that once we have Dr. Reese with us.
I was home.
An amazing story about, like we said, how you were, even if you weren't being used the way you liked, you were still a nationally recognized figure from WWF, and you went to living in the YMCA for $120 a month, and that wasn't even rock bottom. It even got worse from there.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, again, WWE's having a big week down in Los Angeles at the Staples Center, NXT TakeOver, Survivor Series, Raw, and SmackDown. We can only implore you to take part in our Paul Bearer Holiday Headlock, something that makes me happy. A guy that was like a second dad to me. This is going to be the
Percy Pringle.
Well, I know we need to talk about him. We're going to do a Holiday Headlock special, because that's just a special human being when it comes to my life. We want the fans to take part. We're going to have some great bundle offers, some great experiences that we're going to offer to try and help. You know, the way we have to run it in kayfabe, Tony, is that in 2018 there are some kids that Santa Claus can't find on his GPS, so we got to try and help the cause a little bit, right?
Santa Claus?
Santa Claus.
I like Santa Claus.
You and I are still thinking it's summertime.
Jingle bell, jingle all the way.
Well,
oh, what fun it used to be in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
All right, well, at least you had free Christmas trees when you were homeless, but we're going to continue this conversation next time. For my good friend, the Hall of Famer, Tony Atlas, check out BostonWrestling.com. There he goes. We got merchandise galore. Check out the Patreon as we go over the top.
Saw him, you even say it.
Anyone want to adopt him? For Tony Atlas, I'm Dan Marati. Look for another great episode of Memories and Legends this week. Goodbye.
Frosty the Slow Man.
The World Wrestling Federation was live in El Paso, Texas, Sunday, July the 13th, 1997. In the opening contest, Bob Holly beat Leif Cassidy. The Godwins with the win over the Headbangers. Rockabilly defeated Flash Funk. Brian Pillman victorious over Jesse James. DOA beat the New Blackjacks. Ken Shamrock with the win over WWF European Champion, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith via disqualification. Goldust defeated Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mankind victorious over Bret Hitman Hart and WWF Intercontinental Champion Owen Hart. And in the main event, WWF World Champion The Undertaker retained the title over Vader in a casket match. If you were in El Paso live, share your memories in the comment section below. Use the links in the description box to keep Wrestling Legends working in our eBay store and on our world-renowned Patreon streaming service so we can bring you more interactive superstar shoot interviews to relive the good old days of professional wrestling. Check it out. Boston Wrestling Sports in the MWF explodes into a new year with professional wrestling content galore and need you to join our family. Every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. after our Monday Night Raw review, it's Wrestling Insiders at your house with WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. after NXT and AEW, join rotating legends on Wrestling Insiders Special Edition. Every Thursday night at 10 p.m. after our NXT and Dynamite review, it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll journey on Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty. Friday night after SmackDown, don't miss John Cena Sr.'s Wrestling Insiders Fabulous Fridays. Plus, look for classic clips, history videos, bonus live episodes, pay-per-view, watch-alongs, and more. For less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, get early ad-free access to our Wrestling Insider talk shows, our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library, and help keep wrestling legends working during the worst of times